Yeah, no worries, no rush. Okay, well, hello. In case for some reason you happen to be here accidentally, this is Sounds Like Community, which is every other Wednesday. I'm so used to when it was every Wednesday at 7 p.m. I do we know if we're going to be over on the FM radio today? I'm not sure, but normally that would be 104.5 FM, WRFU, and I'll let you know when that changes over. Anyway, we are here at the Independent Media Center in Urbana-Champaign, and as you're about to find out, all over Illinois, and a bit of Colorado, as I hear. So that is one of the wonderful things about Sounds Like Community that started during this pandemic, and a little bit of what's going to be continuing on, bringing people together from so many places. And if you're here in the Zoom, you're seeing a lot of my face. If for some reason you want to see other faces, there's a perfectly good gallery view to give you kind of Brady Bunch, Hollywood Squares sort of view. There's also a wonderful text chat, so you can text chat to each other very directly. Karthik's taking too long, or oh, I have wonderful things to say, but I just don't know how to say them. Or maybe you're just checking if someone's there. Because every time I see a name I remember, it brings me so much joy. It's like a hug, visually. But let's get down to business for a second here. We have sponsors, and it's my pleasure to announce them. Our IMC's programs are partially supported by a grant from the Illinois Arts Council Agency. The UCIMC is also supported by the United States Regional Arts Resilience Fund, which is an initiative of Arts Midwest. We also have a grant from the ArtsWorks Fund, and UCIMC is a proud member of Community Shares of Illinois. Community Shares members change minds, change laws, and change lives. Today brings a lot of specific joy to my very Illinois heart because we are going to be hearing from artists from all over Illinois in the program of Viral Silence. I will turn it over to Saba, who I believe will be taking it from here.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Saba, and I am the one of the members of the Non-Op Opera Works board, and it's really wonderful to be here and see this culminating element of what we've been experiencing over the last month. I'd like to actually start by saying that this I will be explaining just a tiny bit about the overall project, but the project is one of many projects that Non-Op is engaged with. And just so you get an understanding of the umbrella organization, we have Christoph Pressing here, who is the art director of Non-Op. And maybe he can just give us a quick thing of what is Non-Op, and we go from there.
Great, thanks, Saba. My name is Christoph Pricing, and Non-Op was founded in 2014 to do large-scale, immersive, in-person events. And since the pandemic, we shifted all of our programming online. Currently, our work engages and enables lost, neglected, and suppressed voices to be heard through participatory, immersive, and interactive programs that welcome creative contributions from all who choose to create. Basically what that means is that we're doing a lot of online programming, and we're working with all kinds of different people and asking them to contribute creatively to projects that we then put together into larger programs. Thank you.
Thank you. And at the end, we might mention some of our other projects, but we want to first go into what tonight is about, which is a community-based program called Viral Silence. And it was in part supported by the Illinois Arts Council Art Store grant and otherwise by Non-Op Opera Works. And the idea behind the Viral Silence is to to hear people's experiences with COVID-19 through sounds, and sounds means all kinds of sounds, including words, over the period of time. And this started in the fall, and there are 3 teams of artists, which in a minute I will mention them. And these 3 teams worked in 3 different communities in collecting what became their expression of the viral silence. And so it's a very much community-based activity. And you will have a chance to get a taste of it during this next half hour or so. And with that, I want to mention the 3 projects. So they happened almost exactly during the month before today, a little short of a month. The first one was on June 12th, and that one occurred in Carbondale, in a community there called Adaptive Response. And the 2 community artists that work on that project were Hannah Virkam and Jay Needham. And the second one happened on June 19th, Groundwork Club 21, which was a community garden, which was around the community of Auburn Gresham on the south side of Chicago. And the artist working with that was Alan Moore. And the third one was on June 30th in Champaign-Urbana, so the Champaign County, to be specific. And it was and it engaged Urbana Champaign Independent Media Center. And Keith Moore and Ibrahim, and I hope I say this correctly, Oed Draugo, were the 2 artists that worked on that project. And I hope I said everybody's names, but if I missed anybody, I am sure they will be mentioning all the wonderful people that work on each project. Our hope is that we will take them chronologically, just as I listed it. And from each project, we hope to hear the history of the project, how it came together, and then we'll see a small video clip of their project. And then hopefully they will tell us a little bit about sort of their experience, you know, how did it work? What worked, what didn't work, what were their challenges, and what was their perception of the community's engagement in the process of their project. So having said that, I think we are ready for our first team, which is Hannah and Jay. So whoever is going to go first.
Hi. It's great to be here with you all. My name is Hannah Vierkamp, and I'm actually living in St. Louis right now, but I used to live in Carbondale, Illinois. I went to grad school there, and that's where I met Jay. And we worked with different communities in Carbondale to create this piece. And maybe I'll just say a little bit about my work and then let Jay introduce himself, and we'll talk about the piece. I'm an audio and video artist as well as a painter, and so it was really exciting to work in a project that engages sound and the community, which are 2 things that have been important in my work. Jay, do you want to introduce yourself first, and then we can talk about the piece?
Sure. Well, good evening, everybody. Wonderful to be here. Yeah, the work I do in Carbondale is, one part as a professor on the campus at Southern Illinois University. I have a background in the arts holistically, which really comes out of photography, writing, music, film, and then really in the last 15, 18 years, with more of a focus on sound. But I do a lot of radio work with radio art. And so the idea of a radiophonic space was sort of part of the conception of this piece that Hannah and I were thinking about, was to create a little bit of a bubble in a unique way for radio listening that was kind of intimate. and personal. So we could offer all of you some background and context a little bit on the piece, but at what point would you all like to maybe see a clip of that?
Let's just talk a little bit about it maybe, and then play the clip and then reflect on it a little more. Does that sound good?
Sure,
Okay.
that sounds great. So I think,
Oh, go ahead.
please, when Hannah and I first started talking about how to structure a piece like this, if we wanted to start someplace like that, we could start a little bit about how we were going to maybe come at this idea of creating a little bit of a kind of a radio and sound encounter. We felt that, you know, actualities, interviews were important to be intermixed with live music and sound making. And in that kind of risky and cool environment, sometimes, you know, interesting and new things happen. So sometimes improvisation, you know, on the side of the sound making, but also even on the playback of sound, which Hannah can talk about more directly. But the structure of the piece is really a kind of a live music intermix with pre-recorded interview segments. They're sort of interwoven there over, you know, roughly a 1 hour period.
And I think an important part of the piece that both Jay and I have a background in radio and a love for radio. And at the same time, when we were conceiving of this piece last fall, things were at a really different point with the pandemic, and social distancing was much more crucial than it is at this point. And so conceptually, part of the piece originally was to be a drive-in radio performance, so kind of like a drive-in movie, but that you could drive in and hear the piece. We anticipated presenting it outside live with live musicians, as well as recorded clips and some live interaction with audience. But we anticipated that people could tune in. We would have it broadcast over a microtransmitter, and people could tune in and listen on their car radio, or listen in the parking lot. And that actually shifted because of weather and because of the things that where we are at with the pandemic. It made that possible, and we'll talk more about that after we play a clip. But one thing you can't tell in the clip that you see of the live stream is that we still did use the micro transmitter, and so everything that you will hear in the clip, you hear some of the acoustic sounds of the string instruments, but everything else is going through a mixing board and then broadcast into a micro transmitter. And so there were still radio sets in the parking lot that people could listen to if you were outside, but there were also about 10 or 12 radio sets around the gallery space that we ended up being in inside. And so the way that people were listening still was through the radio. And we were playing with that idea of transmission, you know, like of the unseen. And so the transmission of sound, the transmission of stories, the transmission of music. And then also we saw a parallel to transmission of the virus that is unseen. So that's something that we were playing with too. Would you like to add anything more before we play a clip, Jay?
Oh, that sounded great, Hannah. Thank you. And the idea of the title too, you know, we kept using that as somewhat of a, you know, an aesthetic framework with which we could kind of remind ourselves to stay awake and be adaptive and be responsive. So we began to sort of use that as a mantra, and it actually became really handy, even just the day of the performance, because, you know, as you are working through ideas with collaborators or solving technical problems or just working through how you'll make the piece live, that kind of became a handy title to use to remind ourselves to be a more open group of collaborators, I think.
Well, shall we play that clip, Theo, please? Thank you. And this is the beginning.
It's actually a little hard to remember what the world was like pre-COVID. It's hard for me to actually visualize what it would be like to hang out with people not socially distanced, not 6 feet apart, not wearing masks, just because I'm so accustomed to it.
It's no longer a new thing. It's not a novel idea to be wearing a mask or to stay at home if you feel sick or anything like that.
Pues que uno ya debe de tener más más cuidado con las cosas, valorar más la familia.
Well, it makes you more considerate about things. It makes you value the family more.
Ser más unidos porque pues, pasan estas cosas y es cuando uno más valora lo que tiene.
Maybe be more united. When you go through these things, it makes you appreciate what you have.
I guess if I could just tell anyone something, sort of like reaching out into the ether, it would just be that the people around you are all that matter. The relationships that you form with other people and the communities that you exist within is, at the end of the day, really the only thing that's important.
So thank you for the comments in the chat. And this was the beginning, and it was, as Jay said, about a 50-minute piece. And so I think that I'd like to talk a little bit about the collaboration, because we had really wonderful musicians that we were working with. And Jay, do you want to talk about that, about working with the musicians and the way that we collaborated with them?
You bet. I was thinking of pretty carefully about how not only instruments would blend, but just thinking about genres and different musical styles. Working with local musicians was important, as well as a few students in our program who I often don't get a chance to work with, because normally we're just busy with the class stuff and all the research and things like this. So this was also an opportunity to work a lot more closely with folks I thought would make a really good ensemble. And so some of these folks I've known for a number of years, like Kevin Olau is a regional musician based in Carbondale. He's also a horn player, and he's there on Fender Rhodes. And he himself's a band leader and has several groups going on at any given week in Carbondale. So a busy and gigging professional, and also a music teacher too. And also on cello, Eunice is a recent graduate student of the master's program at SAUC, but now going on to do her DMA. And so, the more and more Han and I began to talk about how to maybe put some of the instruments together, it seemed like this kind of eclectic mix was going to work well. Everything from pedal steel to kind of ambient guitar music, which is being kind of looped in a little bit later by Tyler Horn, who's a member of our interdisciplinary MFA program at SIU.
And we, part of the time a lot of the time we were collaborating remotely as we were working on this, and we had collected stories. We had an open call and invited people to submit stories, but most of the stories that we collected were through the workshops that we did in Jay's class and with another colleague that we worked with their students, and then Jay and a graduate student who has been working with members of the Mexican community in Cobden, a lot of whom are farm workers there, for another documentary, and has a relationship with some of those people. Some of them were willing to contribute too. So we had those were the main collections that we had of the stories. And then that's one thing, talking about things that, that could be developed on. I don't feel like we would say this is representative of the entire Carbondale community by any means. I would have loved to have that be a bigger groups of stories that we were drawing from, and that would be something to develop further. But I think that it was, instead of trying to be representative of the community, I don't think there's the community. I think that it was the stories that we had, that we worked with. We tried to find pieces in that together, hopefully, told a little bit of a collective story that it was really relatable in a lot of different ways. And then, so we were doing those, we had those, and Jay and I worked, we kind of had different parts of the project that we naturally were working on, and then we worked together and talked about it as it was going. But I did a lot of the editing and kind of consolidating and curating those pieces of the clips, and then I played them through Ableton, so they were triggered live along with the music. And Jay worked with the musicians, with several different musicians, and then all of us together as an ensemble when we were all in Carbondale together a few days before the show, and came up with Jay composed several what we were calling figures and kind of movements through the piece, and then together we came up with cues that we could use, but a lot of it was improvisational. So we had a structure of the piece, but it was not rehearsed all the way through by any means.
Yeah, thanks for that. It was, we had to kind of set up a structure where it was a little bit of a triangle where I could run rehearsals in Carbondale with musicians, record them, send a few temporary tracks to Hannah to listen to for pacing and ideas. But, not having the advantage of being in the same city, and as we got closer to the time of the performance, we actually kind of shaped it a little bit differently than I'd worked with pieces in the past. And I thought it might be best to keep these ideas of these figures a little bit more fluid. Even maybe about a week or so before the piece was ready to go, we didn't quite know exactly the order of the figures, if you will. And I thought that was, normally you'd really want to figure that all out, or you'd be sweating those details. But I was kind of happy to leave it a little bit more fluid. And in many ways, rehearsing with the musicians, they were easy and happy to do that, right? And so we could just change the order of something. And in that way, it was a little bit more like a live studio session, and with the playback of the cues. So it sort of came together in the timing of it. And we were pretty happy with the more open, or kind of more of a legato line for the whole piece. So it's a little bit slower. It's a little bit more contemplative. And that was something that we were trying for.
Just the collaboration with the musicians was really wonderful. They were so engaged and just really game to, again, be adaptive with us and be playful, and they got the feeling of the piece. And so that improvisational aspect worked really well. And then the other note, I know we should wrap up this section, but the other note I wanted to add just about adapting was, I mentioned that we did end up moving inside last minute because it was 75% chance of rain, and we had all those musicians with string instruments, and it was also 95 degrees. And so we moved inside, and it was a little bit different concept than we had, but it also was really interesting in the context of what we were talking about, because we were kind of thinking about how rapidly things have changed over this past year, and just the fact that we were able, that it felt safe enough for us all to be inside at that point was an adaptation. And several people came up to us after the show and said how meaningful it was to them to see a live performance for the first time in over a year. So so I think that ended up kind of conceptually, it was a diversion from our original concept, but then it ended up conceptually going along with that adaptation again.
Thank you very much for sharing your experiences with the project. I saw it as a live stream, and I was really happy to see the segment on the video now and hear all that went into making it. And it was very special. I'm an art and psychologist scholar myself, and I really, these three projects were perfect in that way. I'd like to move on, with your permission, to the second piece that we have, which is the one performed on June 19th. I guess perform is not quite the right word to use, but the experience that was had on June 19th, and that one was in a Southside community of Chicago, Auburn Gresham, by Alan Moore. So Alan, if you can tell us a little bit of the history of the project, how it came to be, and then we'll watch a video segment of yours, and then maybe your reflections of what worked, what didn't, what was the community connection, and that would be great.
Right. So welcome everybody. Thank you. Alan Moore, pronouns he, him. I'm a experimental sound artist, educator, curator, just from Robbins, but like working a lot in Chicago. Last summer, I got the chance, an artist by the name of D. Rosen, and also a very close friend, kind of put me on, and put me and my partner on to Auburn Gresham about a community garden that was going on out there. And so from scratch, and we went out there, and I'm not gonna lie, being in the middle of quarantine, being around people, it was tough. And my expectations were just not, I didn't know what to expect. And just like going there and like honestly seeing and working with carrying dirt, laying down the grounds, and doing all this amazing work with these amazing people that are already living and embedded in that community, which is great. And I got a chance to work with Quaylee, Kwaza, who just, basically gave us a platform to kind of work. And so a group of artists, kind of myself, my girlfriend, Christina Warzeka, all of us, and a lot of other artists who I'm going to apologize and say I may not remember all of your names, but there were a lot of really awesome artists willing to come for free from the north side of Chicago, all over the city, help get this garden going, and also help run workshops for the youth, for the young people that are in that neighborhood. Not just the youth, but also sharing it with adults, anybody that was interested. And so that we did over the summer. When this opportunity came about, I had worked actually with Christoph kind of in between this and the last summer and this project with walking through, oh my God, and now I can't, Oral, right? Why am I not remembering the name, Christoph? Forgive me.
Oral Neighborhoods.
Oral Neighborhoods, right. We got to, walk and sound record in Evanston, and then on the flip side of that map, the exact distance was Auburn Gresham. And so I've been dying to get some sort of sound work into this project. And I also, in my work, I make experimental records out of other materials. And so I got a chance to actually make a record out of like the okra leaves that was in the actual like garden. So that's why if you see the Groundwork logo or the page, you might see this really crumply green half dead thing, and that's a okra leaf encased in like glue and all sorts of other stuff. I just gotta say, you know, it was really great. It's been great, and like this Juneteenth performance was really important because we wanted to kick off the season. So, you know, the great thing is that like we did this last year with absolutely no funding, and so through, you know, this, you know, being able to like, you know, donate like something to them, and also to help like, you know, like support the teaching artists or like the workshops that I did, or the things that I'm going to do is really great. The day of Juneteenth, I did a, you know, very small workshop on how to make a DIY record player, something that I do like often. The thing was that it was just like really beautiful. It was amazing. It was an explosion of like so many things kind of intersecting. And there was definitely some bumps in the road, just logistically trying to plan stuff. And, you know, and I can imagine like Hannah and like Jay, like being in different places, because, you know, we're in Chicago, and it just was challenging, and there was a lot that we didn't know. And like when we got there was some other things set up. There was a parade coming in. It was just a flux of people kind of spread out, and the vibe was really cool. The band was like really into it. And so, you know, I went to do my performance, and one of the things that I felt was that like there was already a beautiful vibe going. I performed, maybe not as long as I would have wanted to, but I felt like in my spirit, it was like, okay, like I'm going to perform. I'm going to do my weird experimental stuff. And, you know, even though like I know some people, you know, always were like, oh, what is this sound? Like a record made out of what? I still got so much positive like feedback. And then I felt like we left that place, and it was still just like the vibe was just great. So I guess whenever you're ready, we can like play the video, and then I can reflect a little bit more.
Members of the committee. My name is Anita F. Hill, and I am a professor of law at the University of Oklahoma. I was born on a farm in Okmulgee County, Oklahoma in 1956. I am the youngest of 13 children. I had my early education in Okmulgee County. My father, Albert Hill, is a farmer in that area. My mother's name is Irma Hill. She is also a farmer and a housewife. My childhood was one of a lot of hard work and not much money. But it was one solid family that was represented by my parents.
Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad to teach you, you should ask yourself who taught you to hate being what God gave you. And I, for one, as a Muslim,
So hopefully like that helps like kind of understand more of the weird vastness of of like the sound performance. Thank you of the sound performance that I did. I think one of the really important things to kind of like think about, not only Auburn Gresham, like I'm from Robbins, and I always say that, but like Robbins is a very small, like Black, like, you know, struggling community, like in the Chicagoland area. And so to understand like being in a place where there is like really rich roots and like not just history, but like Black history, and being able to like talk about the different elements and signifiers of like our community, and not just to talk about it and aim it at our community, but like take the elements of like our like Black creations, our like creativity, and kind of share it. And so that it's not just a Black like piece of work, it is a human like work. That's what I'm hoping. All I can say is that like in reflecting on this project, I know for a fact that like during this quarantine, that one of the things that saved my soul and my sanity was working in this garden. And it's really important for me to like give back to this like space. And then also, you know, not to take for granted the history of not only like, you know, the gardening and the community, but just like the real individual people. There's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of people that did not make it this to where we are today. They didn't make it past, you know, the quarantine. They didn't make it past like last winter. And I, you know, Quayle and like, you know, being the head of the 21st like Block Club, 21st Ward Block Club, you know, has taken the brunt of a lot of the pain and a lot of the things like missing in that community. And it's just like, you know, all I can do, or as best that I can do as an artist, is to parallel and to give, you know, as much as my love and my energy as I can. I think when I got up there and Christoph contested this, I don't even think I introduced myself. I don't even think I said my name. I'm always like that. I feel, and I should be better about it for you know, self-promotion purposes, but I just wanted, I don't feel me being like centered. I feel like I'm there, I'm playing some sounds. You don't have to know my name. It's not about that. It's about the community. And that's, you know, that's what I really felt and resonated with. Yeah, wait, Christoph, you said look at the tape. Wait. Oh,
we looked at the tape.
I said we just have to look at the tape to see if you did.
Yeah, exactly. No, I did not. Trust me, I did not. I also, you know, in a reflective nature, and I'll stop or pass it on like shortly, but I was privileged enough to have like some music kind of drop at the same, like the day before. Actually, we're going to drop it on Juneteenth, but the label kind of like dropped it the day before. You know, it just like that day felt like an intersection. It was a lot of pressure, but it felt great. And I'm looking forward to continuing the work. I also really want to kind of take a second crack at some of the same material and using the same voices to like do like another performance that's going to be groundwork, like, you know, related, that'll be streamed as well. Talk more about that later, or I'll like, you know, I'll make sure to share that with everyone if people are interested. But yeah, it's been great. I have to thank, you know, Christoph. I have to thank Non-Op and this entire project, like the magnitude of it. You know, we definitely had to pivot, you know, and do some things, but pivoting is literally my favorite. Oh yeah, I'll share a link. I don't even have, I feel like if I try to share the link release now, my computer will like explode or something. So I'll share it, you know, some other time. But yeah, I'm just really thankful. I'm glad, and it feels great because I'm not just gonna be like, I'm not one and done. I'm actually like, I feel great about continuing this work and continuing to work with that garden, with those people, you know. So yeah, it's all good.
Thank you so much, Alan. Yes, you captured with what you said, the mood of that afternoon. I think it was really, it's hard to explain it, but I think it was a really wonderful community coming together. And I love the way you interacted with the children and the youth. And these two programs I had seen, one as a live stream and the other I was at, and they were both amazing. And I think both did a great job for me to hear viral silence, to hear the sounds of what we have been going through. And we are coming to our third project that we had as part of this sort of full umbrella. And the third one happened on June 30th, so not that long ago. And it was the one that happened in Champaign County, and it is Champaign County, March 2020, and continuing is the sort of project. And it was the Urbana-Champaign Independent Media Center project. And I would like to ask Keith and Ibrahim to sort of tell us how that project came to be and what the process was like. And then we will see a clip again of their project. And then they will also tell us what worked and what they see coming out of it. So it's all yours, Ibrahim and Keith.
All right. Thank you for the introduction, Saba, and thank you to Christoph and the NANAP board for inviting us to do this project in the first place. When Christoph first contacted me for a piece that reflected on the community's experience of the pandemic, I thought about it a bit and realized right away that that's basically what we've been doing throughout the whole pandemic through this program, Sounds Like Community. So the governor ordered the shutdown of the state in the end of March. And right away, by the 2nd of April, we started the first of these shows. And the format has been 2 sets of material, a poet, a musician, an activist, talking about their work and speaking to the community, 2 sets every Wednesday. So by the end of 2020, I think we had presented 30 or 35 shows, maybe more. We just had 2 short breaks in August and December. And so just with 35 shows, there's already 70 people or groups coming out from the community and presenting their work. And now we're into already the next 6 months of 2021. So with the reopening of the state and of the IMC, along with that, we moved to a format just a few weeks ago where we are now doing shows on the first and third Wednesdays of the month, not every week. So on the show, there has been a microcosm of the community, and that's where we get our name, Sounds Like Community. And one really special thing that we saw week after week was the audiences were happy for the show, but the guests would usually say, this was my first chance to do something. This was my first chance to talk to the community or play for the community. This was my best day in the pandemic, was getting out here and doing my thing again. And it was lovely to hear that. We said, well, we thought we were doing this for the audience, but over and over again, we hear, what this means to the people who come on and present. So rather than trying to somehow synopsize this, giant microcosm of the community that we attempted to create over the duration of the show, which still continues, we thought, it is an interesting microcosm, and we can't even go back and revisit with everybody. It's too many. Why don't we try to start conversations between the people who have been on the show and get a more personal perspective of what's going on, and build that discussion that has kind of started and restarted every week. And so we thought about pairing various people and making interesting conversations, and the possibilities are many with so many people who came on. And we knew that we wanted the Riders of Oya to be part of that process. Their group includes some of the youngest people who've appeared on the show. It's a group of teenage poets. I think initially Ashanti Files' goal was to have kids about 12 to 14, but some are as young as 10, and some are now maybe upwards of 17. So within that group, definitely are the youngest people who appeared on the show. and we want, and they're brilliant. So we've always looked forward to bringing them back, and we wanted them to be part of the interviewing process. And as we really got down to the details of the structure of the work, we felt that was enough. They're the youngest people who've been on the show. They're poets. They are very direct in their poetry. And it's a great idea for the youngest people to have the opportunity to talk to the other poets and artists and activists who've been on the show and ask these adults who have various positions and roles in the community what their experience has been. So we really turned over the interviewing process to the Riders of Oya, and we worked with Ashanti to go through the list of people who've been on the show and figure out who we would interview. We did a mix of guests who've been on the show and also people who've had a role in the production of the show. And each one of those interviews is about a 30-minute spot on its own. Each one of them is lovely. We'd like to edit them and have them available in an auxiliary format. But we took parts of them and made this nearly hour-long documentary. We also had one of our own IMC members, Drake Mater, who's part of the Sounds Like Community curation team. He also is just finishing an internship here and just graduated from the University of Illinois. We asked Drake to go ahead and sort of turn the role around and do some interviews of the Riders of Oya. So a couple of the young poets were interviewed by him. And that's really the inception of this project. And then we knew that, you know, we are hoping things are going to open up. So we decided to show the film here live to a small audience and to have some live performances. And at the IMC, we've been doing hybrid work as much as we can. So we're trying to have live things happen and live audiences of an appropriate and safe size, but then also to stream things online so that they can reach people who can't come in or even people who are out of town. So I don't know, Ibrahim, if there's something you want to add to that, but I think that tells you what this documentary is about. It's conversations between our community members, and we can see the clip. I think we're ready for the clip. Ibrahim, say something after. All right.
So how has it been for you adjusting to like the whole Zoom thing and everything, like social distancing and quarantine, like that?
Well, I'm a social animal, as most people are, so it's very difficult. Like, you know, I'm a 30-year organizer, so I like to sit down. You know, this is one of the first times I've been able to sit down face to face with somebody and have a conversation. And frankly, it's like these conversations that juice me up and like help me to really feel full and to like make my heart feel full, right? And frankly, this last year, it's been very difficult to have that feeling. I've been much more in my like nuclear family pod, which I'm really grateful for, right? But also, you know, it's, I hate Zoom and I don't want to be on video conferencing ever again in my life. And I would prefer to sit down face to face and have conversations, you know, and frankly, when there is disagreement, because we're not able to like be in the room together and kind of feel each other out, I think it has created a lot more conflict and a lot more kind of hard feelings. And so I look forward to a time when it's safe for us to be back together, you know, in the same space.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what changes do you see that are happening in the community right now because of your work and because of other people on Sounds Like Community and other activists in our area?
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing I can say is, you know, I moved here in 1995. I've never went to this university. I didn't come here as a student. I actually came here as an artist. And I thought, I came with my partner at the time, and she and I were going to stay for a year. That was a long time ago. And so there's a reason that we stayed, and that reason has been more clear to me than ever before this last year, because Champaign County and Champaign-Urbana is such a like connected and resilient space. Not that we don't have our problems, but I feel like as we have been surviving this pandemic together, I have seen more collaboration and cooperation. I've seen more people come together, who usually were kind of siloed or there was some friction. Folks who are willing to do the work and not just talk about the work, those folks, we've been coming together this whole year, and we've been helping to make sure people stay alive, they stay safe. We've been delivering people to delivering food to people's homes. We've been helping them get bailed out on rent. We've been helping folks get their water turned back on, and it's been like, the community has been great. Like anything that we ask for, over at Township, anything we ask for, it's like it just shows up at our front doorstep the next day. So this community is amazing, and it's taught me a lot about, this is not the first crisis, right? I mean, we're facing catastrophic climate change, we're facing late stage capitalism, we're facing, we're having to look in the mirror.
All right. Yes.
All right. Thank you for that clip. So there we saw Camille Files interviewing Danielle Chenoweth, who is currently the president of the IMC, and Sounds Like Communities project of the IMC. She's referring to some of the things in town, lots of different organizations doing that work, including the Cunningham Township, where she's a supervisor. She's also referring to Champaign County Bailout Coalition, which is a project, a fiscal sponsored project of the IMC. And Danielle's role with the program is that this is the 20th year anniversary of the IMC, and there were lots of activities planned to celebrate the 20th year anniversary. And suddenly the building was closed down and nothing could happen. So it Sounds Like Community was up and running, and we quickly realized that Sounds Like Community could be the place for all the 20th year celebrations. So Danielle was on the show several times in that context. Ibrahim, are there some things you would like to add?
No, it was great. I mean, this project, the way we were planning, we found that we have a more resource. We can even go more than 1 hour, because we have like 38 episodes for Sound Like Community, to do less than 1 hour documentary on that. It was, we wish we have more time to do different things, but everything's felt, very well, because, the amazing thing of this project, the interviewer, the Rada of Oya, they were so natural, and everything's went naturally, and the question was so natural, and we got things that changed the story a little bit. And having worked with them in the past, through them, and have them coming back, we felt that it's another opportunity to hear more about the poem reading again. So that was, the collaboration was very well done on this project.
Yes, I think Ashanti, who started the group, Writer's Boy, is here with us on the Zoom, and
yes,
you might want to chime in or say something. But one thing that really struck me, I think for Ibrahim and I, we have this notion that the pandemic is a kind of epical thing. It's the end of one era, it's the beginning of another, and so we felt it was very appropriate to have the young people who have the most questions and the most future to sort of look to and sort out, asking the questions of older members in the community. But as the interviews happened, Ashanti said to me, each of these people has a very specific role in the community, and these conversations feel to me like the beginning of a mentorship or an internship or creating a connection inside the community between these young people and these various people who have unique roles in town. So it really moved me that that was a possibility that might be unfolding out of this project. Ashanti, do you want to add anything?
I think you guys have pretty much said it all. There's 10 children at my house, so please forgive the clutter, but and the clatter and the little voices. But it was just phenomenal to even be considered to be part of this because, we're a big, and it was really moving that you thought of the group to do these interviews. And it even surprised me some of the questions that came out of it. Like one of the children asked, what are your views on child abuse? Another girl asked, what are your experiences with systemic oppression? And I feel as though the unique thing about my group is I try to build the confidence in them to ask these questions boldly. And it was just really awesome to be considered and to have the ability for the local activists and artists in the community to respond to those questions. And I think you were right, you spoke of this before, it made a really good dichotomy between these younger people and these older people, and them to have conversations and realize they have the same goals. And now they have these connections within the community where they can say, I thought about doing this. I can ask Mr. Shanti about that person I interviewed, or I'm interested in doing a medical internship. I can ask about Karthik that I interviewed, or I'd like to get involved in politics. I can talk to Danielle, or I'd like to work with other young people. I can talk to Drake. And so it broadened their eyes to what's available in the community and what they now see that they have access to. Whereas before they kind of thought that it was dreams. Now they see, no, this is tangible and this is something that you can achieve. And you can do it right here in Champaign. You don't have to go to a big city to be a prominent activist. You can make big moves here. So when we did our decompression exercises, it was really great. It was really great. I was really happy that you guys thought to add us.
Well, it was our pleasure. It was great. It was fantastic. And one kind of surprising moment out of this was that you ended up being interviewed by one of your own daughters. And it was interesting to see you kind of speaking to each other and hearing each other from a different positions. That was a really special moment.
It really was. And this is a person I live with, right? I gave birth to, and he's asking me these detailed questions. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is the hot seat. And she made me think about things that I hadn't previously considered. And that's the thing about the youth. It's like, you never know what's going on in their head until you ask. You never know what you're role modeling until you get feedback. So it was an overall phenomenal experience. I know we're hoping to continue to add to it, and working with you, Keith, was awesome, and working with Ibrahim is always awesome because there's a level of professionalism that the girls are also exposed to for those who want to go into the media and to Hollywood industry. This is how lighting works. This is how sound works. They know what a B-roll is. It was really great. It was really great.
Wow. Thank you. I couldn't ask for more. And Ashanti, you're absolutely right. The questions that the girls asked were really impressive sometimes. And actually, in the editing room, Ibrahim and I would just have to laugh sometimes. Patrick Murphy would be sitting there, and Ezra asked, "So tell me, what you think the purpose and meaning of music is." And I was like, "Oh, thank goodness I'm not." Let's see what he says to that. That's a big one. And Patrick gave a really beautiful answer in that case, and I know we included that part, right? He's like, "Well, music, it's rain, it's rhythm, and then it's people having all these different ways of transcribing this into sound, and so you have all of these different styles because of all these different ways that people respond to these stimuli and create music out of them." And it was such a wonderful answer to a really big question. So I was glad she was brave to ask it, and he was brave to take a shot at answering that.
Thank you so much, really. First, the last group that presented, and of course, all three of you, all the three teams of artists that did this combination of three programs. And I wanted to, at this point, first of all, thank you. It was really wonderful. I had experienced all three of the programs, and it was great to see you all in one screen and see the thread that goes across all three projects, three very different projects, but speaking to the same thing. And it was really wonderful. At this point, we're coming towards the end of our program, although I'm enjoying being with everybody, but I know it's everybody's evenings and things to do. So I wanted to mention that, and I'll be putting it in the chat, that you can see these programs. So if you go to our website and to the section called Initiatives, you can go to Voices and you can see all of these programs, but you click on them, but also our one of our other projects, Say Their Names, which is a project that we are in midst of doing. It will be a long-term project. We are collecting and in a way remembering the Black Americans who have been, whose lives have been cut short by the officers of law, and sharing their pictures and their bios, and giving voice to them in this way, and humanizing the lives that have been cut short unfairly and unjustly. So it's on an interactive map, and it's an ongoing project. And actually everybody, all of you are invited not only to see the map, but also if you know of cases and you want us to consider putting it on the map, there is a way set up for you to do that. So it is an ongoing project, and we hope that you will all be part of this process. Before we end, I want to see if anybody here has any questions. I know I have a zillion questions, but I don't want to ask any of them at this point. But anybody who would like to ask a question from any of our artists or from Christoph about NANOP, or from Theo, who is the technology behind all of this. All of these projects came together because of the work that Theo was doing in the background. So I believe you can either put your thoughts in the chat, or you can unmute yourselves, I believe. And
they weren't able to up until a few seconds ago, but while you were saying that, I allowed that to happen. So their pick.
Yes, audience members can now unmute themselves, and you can also share any question in the chat window.
Right, and I put the link to the map there too. Yes, so it can be questions or it can be comments. You know, these are, I think the video clips were great, but to be honest, not doing justice to amazing works that were done. I hope those of you who haven't seen all three, that you will go and watch all three of them.
Well, I wanted to take a moment just to mention or to clarify that Ibrahim and I have this video collaboration called VAM, but Sounds Like Community is its own team and its own group of curators. So I would want to thank our executive director, Miriam Larson, who is on the team. Carol Inskeep was for a very long time on the team. Janelle Davenport Pleasure, who was with us earlier, is on the team. Drake Mater, myself. That's the curatorial group. Of course, Karthik is our regular MC, and we're on the air right now with WRFU. So thanks to DJ BJ Clark, who was interviewed and has a spot in there, for keeping the program not only over the internet, but over the airwaves. I just had one question. Alan, the record that you were playing in the background has this really bizarre texture, and you can see that it's sort of self-pressed. Can you talk a little bit about that and when and how you got into that?
Yeah, so you're exactly right. Like I self-pressed the records. They're like copies. Started, I would say maybe about like 6 years ago or so. My like visual work kind of evolved to sound work, and mostly just because I hadn't saw or didn't know that like my love of music, my appreciation of tinkering could actually be like used for art. And even though I've been drawing and painting my whole life, so that was a breakthrough for me, getting into kind of like the science of like what a record is, why it's such an important object to me, and like, like kind of like getting me partially like wanting to play like the ghost or the vibe of like that particular like record that I made a copy of. So that has been a thing in all of my performances. It is a combination of, some Ableton, but like the rhythms, the loops that I get like from those particular records are amazing. And then I've been able to take it a step further and like use actual materials, like I said, from the garden, like using like okra, using the dirt and things like that from specific places. Before I made that okra record, I made a record out of like Georgia red clay, which is very iron heavy.
So you're saying you made a record out of okra?
How do you do it? Tell us how you do it.
Okay, so it's hard to like, okay, so I have a formula, but it's basically just me taking the material itself, taking like different glues, adhesives, all like very like biodegradable, very like environmentally friendly, and just literally pressing like a record and making a copy of it. So I've been doing this process for so long. I know how to make it where it's like really like high fidelity, like sounds really nice. But when I really want it to be like loopy, and also, you kind of give it up to whatever material you're making out of. So
it's copying another record that you have that you press into. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
The dream would be to get a lathe and make my own records and do that, but future project.
Well, that heads off the question I was going to ask as to that. Have you talked to anyone else about that pursuit of lathe? Or
I've been researching a lot. I do think I'm a lot closer. I have been able to with like funding, like get at least a lead on like I do have a little toy die cutter myself. But I do think that's going to be a project that's going to come hopefully in the next couple of years. And I've done crazy research, so you can ask me probably anything about that, and I can tell you.
I will definitely be taking you up on that, because there's no way we're going to have enough time for the questions of that.
Exactly.
Is there anyone that you're in regular contact with that is on this pursuit as well? You said you were doing research, but how much of it was like just talking to people as opposed to looking stuff up?
To be honest, it was literally like me it started being in like my grad school studio, and just I won't ever say that I didn't learn from other people. It was mostly just like, and this is why I teach. It was letting myself know that like there was nothing that I did or didn't do that wasn't valuable, and all the little crazy tinkering things just really kind of like intersected and like struck like in that space. And I feel that if kids especially, had more time, I went so in debt to pay for grad school, another school, but people shouldn't have to do that to figure out the value in themselves and what they're doing. So, that's kind of how that like synthesized, and why I teach and do everything that I do now. I literally am teaching a workshop tomorrow, the last day, and I'm showing kids like how to make like a copy of a record out of just wood glue, and it's just really cool to see like people not realizing that like you go pay $100 for a record player, sure, fine, but did you know for less than $5 you can take the science of that and make something that doesn't have to have a brand, doesn't have to follow what I hope to be the dying roar of capitalism. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to do any of that. It's just with what you got. So Sorry if I went on a tangent.
I'm trying to not come up with it. I'm trying to not come up with an excuse to make you talk for like another hour.
Yeah, I want to hear about the DIY
God.
record player
like,
too.
Yeah, that's what the children were making out there. At
Yeah. That's what they were making. And so, it's always a crazy science because it's like when they're making it, it's like we're outside, it was noisy. It wasn't as many kids. Like, I can't lie. Like, I think some of the other art tables kind of were like hoarding some of the children. But anyway, like the ones I got to talk to and show, it was great. Like, and I'm getting to do it again. And like, again, it's nothing beats seeing their faces when they're like, wait, what? Like, this is, I can hear this. And so, yeah.
Yeah, the
Very
direct
cool.
physical relationship of like, this is literally a sound wave never stops being novel.
Yeah, never.
Of course, some of the children who were around him had never even seen a record.
Right. Right. They're like, what is
what
this?
I thought it was wonderful was the parents would bring the child. Of course, the parents knew what a record is, but their children, a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, an 11-year-old hadn't seen a record. They didn't know what a record is.
Yeah.
And I thought the triangular interactions between the parent, the child, and Alan around what's a record, and then of course how to make this handmade with cardboard and these little cup things. It was just amazing. These were really great projects. I know our time is up, but what is really wonderful is to hear how all of you are thinking of continuing these projects, and it's not like a one-time thing that was done. And I think that's really important. I know to Non-Op Opera Works, because that's our whole idea is sort of community and artists and the continuation of the dialogue that happens between the artists and the community, and for the arts to really be a spark, really, for creating healthy communities. And I think all three of your projects really did that. And I think that was really unique and special. Christoph knows that for about 10 years, I coordinated a conference, Art Response to Violence, at Northeastern Illinois University. And we explored for those 10 conferences how the arts can be an instrument of bringing awareness and healing to experiences of violence. And the violence was very broadly defined, so the pandemic would have fallen into that. We haven't had the conference during the pandemic, but I feel that through your work, I actually, because I've been very sad that I have not been able to hold the conference during the pandemic, but through being engaged with your projects and over the last month, I kind of feel like it did that for me, is the recognition of the role of the arts in the community and its importance. So thank you for all the work you're doing, and hope that we will all stay in touch and keep it going. Yep. So. Christoph, I don't know if you wanted to say anything before we close.
You've really covered it, and I want to extend a thank you to all of the artists again and the communities for their participation and in this program and their trust and like, okay, what is it going to be? Well, we don't really know, and going with that and allowing it to the works to blossom. And so thank you, Ashanti, and everyone in Urbana. And we could have done like a whole program conversation on each one of these projects. So thanks for all of your work. And let's stay in touch. And if there's future possibilities, like Keith and I have been talking, and I think Alan, as he mentioned, is going to do something on radio.co coming up at some point. And so definitely want to stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm glad that Karthik put that last message there, because I have to say that one of the things that had been really watching your program, that live stream, was a very, very healing experience for me. And I think that the combination of those comments and the sound of the birds and the music, that it was an amazing, powerful three forms of sounds blending together. And I mean, I kept messaging actually Johan, who was also watching it, saying, this is incredible, you know, like so thank you. All three projects were amazing. Thank you, everybody.
Well, it's been to be involved.